It is hoodie season. My name is Nate, and today we're going to learn how to tie-dye a hoodie. We're going to be making this pattern right here. You're going to need a few supplies before we get started. So you're going to need some soda ash. You need some Procion dye and some dye bottles. You're going to need some rubber bands and some dish soap. Before we get started on this, you're also going to want to mix your dye. So if you don't know how to mix the dye, please watch my video, What is Procion Dye? And it'll go over the instructions on how to do that. And then you're also going to want to wash the the hoodie. So you're going to put this in the washing machine just on the regular cycle with regular detergent. Give it a good wash. Don't worry about drying it. And then we're going to prep it in soda ash afterwards. So go ahead and get your shirt washed, and then we'll get started. After your hoodie is washed, you're going to be soaking it in soda ash. And so this water right here is a soda ash solution of 1 gallon of water to 1 cup of soda ash. I'm going to be putting quite a few hoodies in here. So I have 6 gallons in this, so I put 6 cups of soda ash. You can put as many items in that will fit, and then you're going to want to let it sit. So we'll see if all these will fit in here. You need to make sure that they get completely wet. So you press it in there, and with hoodies, they're going to take quite a bit of water. And so if you're only doing one, you're probably going to need at least 1 gallon of water. 1 gallon should be just fine for one. So you're going to get it all in there, let all your liquid absorb, and then you're going to want to let this sit for about 15 minutes. All right, once your hoodie has sat for about 15 minutes or so, you're going to want to wring out all the excess water. And so you're just going to start squeezing as you pick it up. Some of these can get kind of heavy. I'm not sure exactly what size this is, but because of how much hoodies absorb, these can absorb a lot of water. So you're going to want to try to squeeze out as much water as possible. So there's the first initial squeeze. And then if you can, try to get a little bit more out, especially if you're using this water. So this water can be saved to dye more. So if you're doing more than one, then you can keep some of this water because there's still soda ash in the water that's being squeezed out. We're going to try to get as much water out as possible. You don't want to twist it too much because you can tear some of the stitches and stuff. So you really want to squeeze more than twist. You can twist a little bit, but you want to get as much water as possible out. Then we're going to put it in this bucket here. So it's still not quite ready to dye. You can either hang it up somewhere and let it dry out. But if it's cold, that could take a long time. So one of the things that I like to do is we're going to take this to the washing machine and we're going to spin it out. To spin out the excess water with the washing machine, what you want to do, turn it on. And with mine, so there's a lot of different settings, but mine is the front load. And so what I do is I can come over here to this rinse and spin setting, and it automatically puts the rinse on here. I do not want it to rinse. So to turn the rinse cycle off, I have to push this all the way till it turns off. Once that rinse cycle is off, it's good, because if it rinses, then it'll rinse the soda ash out and you'll have to soak it again. And then to spin it, I put it on the highest setting for the spin, and then we start it. So after your hoodie has spun out and has gotten all the extra liquid out, and your shirt is mostly dry, you're not going to want it to get all the way completely dry, especially if you're hanging it out. You don't want it to get all crispy because then it gets kind of hard to fold and tie. So we want it to be mostly dry, but still slightly damp, just barely. So right now I've got it inside out and face down. What this does is by turning it inside out. If we happen to spill dye somewhere or get some stray dye particles somewhere, it helps hide those flaws a little bit by turning it inside out. And then by putting it face down, when we go to tie this, that side that's on the table will have a slightly cleaner image than this back side here. So we do it inside out and face down. To make a spiral, so I have this tool right here. This is just a set of chopsticks with a rubber band and a rubber band. All this does is gives us somewhere to twist after we make our pinch right here. So to start, what we're going to do is find the center, find our armpit, and we usually go about an inch or so below the armpit. Come across to the center, and you'll make a pinch right there. If you don't have a tool, that's fine. You can just start twisting with your fingers if you want. I like to use a tool because it gives us a little bit smaller of a point right here on the spiral. So what I'm going to do is just spread that just a little bit, stick it on the center, and then we're going to start to twist this up. And so as it twists, you're going to see some of these folds start. So what we're going to do is we're going to help those folds along, and we're going to let it go all the way out. So even on the sleeve here, the sleeves are going to be one of the harder points. So we'll just have to pay attention to those as it comes to them. So let's see. So this one goes out here, and then the hood a lot of times gives us a little bit of difficulty too. So we'll have to help it out, and same with down here. So anywhere where there's extra seams, it can be a little bit difficult. And with the thicker hoodies and stuff, this may not even hold this tool. It's starting to twist kind of a bit. So you'll just want to be gentle and try not to break it if you're using a chopsticks. Okay, so now I've gotten it a little bit more spun. And it may get to a point where it may not even spin anymore. So say right now when we get to this point. So now what we're going to do is all of these folds, we're going to help the folds out. We don't want any to get too tall. So like this is a little too tall. So we're going to bring some of these folds down, and we may end up putting folds in between so that once we close our spiral, which we'll do by holding the center, and we're going to start tucking the spiral or the hoodie in this way. So up here, make sure we get our folds. Get our folds here. And the sleeve folds are definitely the hardest. So this fold right here that's starting to go out into the sleeve, we're going to make sure this one's here. That's going to help our sleeve fold correctly. So this sleeve needs to go this way, and that sleeve needs to go that way. So what we're going to do is as this folds in, it's going to want to make a few more folds here. So what we're going to do is whatever natural folds it starts to make, we're just going to bring those out. And so this is going to tuck in just like this. And then I'm going to bring the whole shirt down just a little bit. So if you move it, try to be careful not to move any of the shirt that you're folded or any of the hoodie that you've folded. And so we're going to start to bring the rest of this all the way over. But it looks like I'm going to need one more fold right here so that it will fold on itself. Now these extra folds that I'm doing, this is so that you have a nice clean spiral that goes in one singular direction. It is much harder to do the spirals on a long sleeve than it is on a shirt. And then the hoodies are much harder to tie than even the long sleeves. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue tucking this in. And then as we get over to this sleeve here, so you see we got a fold here, we got a fold here. And instead of like wrapping this around, which seems like that might be normal, that's not quite the case with this, because you want the folds to be kind of the same. So because of the way this has been folding, our next one is going to go here, and then we're going to get another one right here, so that as it tucks around, these fold in like this, and that'll actually give us the correct pattern for the spiral all the way around and into the sleeves. So now we're going to come back and starting to tighten this whole thing up. Be sure to squeeze it into itself while not squeezing it too hard, because you don't want it to collapse. And just like that. So now that we've got it spiraled, we're probably going to put 4 or 5 rubber bands on here at least. So I'm just kind of squeezing it, letting it hold its shape, letting those folds gain some memory. So as the folds squeeze into each other, they get a little bit of memory, and they will hold for a little bit. They'll start to spring open if you let it sit slow. So kind of get to this a little quick, but you can sort of take your time, because now that those folds are there, if it does, say it does open up too much, you can come back through, and all you got to do is just retighten it. It's all there. There's not really anything that you have to do other than that right there. So we're going to let that go. Take rubber bands. I usually put 2 fingers in like this, and then I take my thumb and spread the whole thing open so that I can slide it into the middle here. Now I'm going to turn this 90 degrees. I'm going to do the same thing. Just slide it into the middle. I got it to slide easy because I'm pressing down with the rubber band against the table and trying not to touch the hoodie as much as possible. That way it doesn't grab it and move it. So now I'm going to take my fingers and press right here to make sure that this doesn't move, and I'm going to gently remove this. You don't want the center to pull out, so be careful when removing your tool. And now we're going to put 2 more rubber bands on here, just like this. The first one right here, and the second one's going to go across right there. So what we're doing is we're kind of making a pie graph. So now we have 8 sections right here. Flip it over, take a look at the other side, do any adjustments if we need. But there's our spiral. Okay, so we got 9 colored dyes here, got 8 colors in black. So we've got 8 sections here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put 1 of each color in each section. Then we're going to flip this over, and we're going to put black on the other side. So we're going to start right here with the fuchsia. And we're going to make sure to get into the middle, but just a little bit in the middle. And a whole lot more out here towards the edge. There's a lot of material out here. There's not nearly as much in the middle, so if you put too much in the middle, it'll bleed into the other colors. And if you don't put enough out here on the outside, then you'll have a lot of white. So it depends on how much white you're trying to get or how much color you're trying to get. And so each hoodie is going to go through 20 ounces of dye or more, possibly. So we're going to be going through probably about half of each color, half of each bottle here, at least for the colors, and then even more for the black. So that'll actually put us, yeah, so say if we use 2 ounces of each color, these are 4-ounce bottles, and we use 2 ounces of all 8 colors, it'd be 16 ounces. And then we'll probably use about 4 ounces of black. So the black will get a lot more since we're covering the other side. And so that right there will be 20 ounces. And so we'll see. Like if you want to dye with the full rainbow here, you can use 8 colors. Or if you just want to put one solid color on this side, or 2 colors, 3 colors, whatever, you can dye. You can dye each side the same. You can dye each side different. Really just depends on what kind of look you're going for. And I'm doing the full rainbow here just so that you can see all of the colors on the hoodie. And so we got fuchsia, red. This would be bright orange. And then we got lemon yellow. And then a bright green, turquoise, blue, and then a deep purple. And some of these colors are, oops, I almost just skipped yellow for some reason. Some of these colors are as is. Some of the colors I have mixed to make them how I want them to be. And like the green has a little bit of extra yellow into it to make it a brighter yellow. The turquoise is turquoise dye, but turquoise dye is very, very bright blue. And so I take that bright blue and add a tiny, tiny little bit of green to it. Just a little bit. And I like to dilute it down some so that it's lighter and get a light colored turquoise. And then my blue, once we get to the blue, so see that turquoise right there? It'll be a little bit more bluish than what you see here. And it's a very fine line between teal, turquoise, and aqua. And so I've been playing with trying to make this color for a while. And yeah, I've definitely learned it's a very fine line between all those colors. So this is kind of a aqua turquoise. Then this blue right here is using that same base turquoise dye and adding the tiniest little bit of purple to it. And that purple gives it a deep blue look. But it's also a very fine line between that purple and an indigo. So you got to be careful if you're using too much, because you can get it to like a violet indigo if you're not careful. And so it'll have more of a purplish look. And so you want that blue indigo, if anything, possibly a navy look. But we're trying to keep it blue, but also separate it from the turquoise blue. So that blue is very bright. And I use that because of printers, the CMYK, cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. You can get most of your colors from those. So you can even make a rainbow with just those colors. It's like my red here is actually fuchsia and orange mixed together. Green you can make by mixing blue and yellow. All you really need is fuchsia, turquoise, and yellow. And that's it. You can get all your colors just from those. So I'm going to go back through, add a little bit of each color over. What this will do is create a nice little blend between the colors versus just like a hard line where it's just solid color, solid color, solid color. I like it to have a nice gradient blend all the way around. Oh, we got a nice smooth color all the way through. And usually I'll blend the lighter color over So if you put the darker color into the lighter color, it can kind of overtake. So you want to use your lighter colors. And then here, yellow is where you end up going on both sides because yellow is lighter than both green and orange. Now I don't want to put too much green into this turquoise here, just a little bit. Same with the turquoise into this blue. And then final, a little bit of this blue into the purple. And we'll take a little bit of this purple and put it into the fuchsia, just because of how big that fuchsia and red spot is. What this will do is create kind of a magenta. So with 9 colors, that magenta actually makes a good color, but since we got 8 spots here, okay. So now we're going to flip this over. This feels pretty heavy. It's got a good amount of weight to it. And you can see how there's color showing on this side already. That means we have pretty much made our color go all the way through. There's some spots where it didn't quite reach. That's totally fine. This actually looks like where the hood is. So I'm gonna take a look here and see how far the color went. Yeah, so we're still most of the way through. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of this black. We're going to be kind of careful with it so it doesn't drip too much onto the other side. And we're just going to slowly drip all the way around the border. What this will do is give it an edge to soak into. And then we're going to work our way in from here. So we don't have to be quite as careful in here. But on the edge, I do like to be a little bit more careful. That way it doesn't bleed over onto the other side. And we're just going to slowly go all the way around. And we're going to saturate the whole thing. We're not going to put as much dye as we did on the other side. So on that other side, we used, about 2 ounces of each color. So there's about, and actually looking at my bottles, some of those are a little bit more than halfway used. So it looks like we probably used about 18, 19, maybe even 20 ounces of color on the other side. And then I'm trying not to use much more than about 4 ounces of this black, which would be about half of this bottle. And this is an 8-ounce bottle, and it feels like it is about halfway used. So I think I am about good here. And actually it looks like we probably used about 5 ounces of this bottle. So we're probably anywhere from 22 to 25 ounces of dye for this shirt or for this hoodie. And there's our 2 sides. We'll let that sit for 24 hours and then wash it out. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is fill up a bucket or some kind of container with some hot water and some dish soap. So after we rinse it out, we're going to be putting it in here to soak for about 15 to 20 minutes. So we're not going to let this fill up completely because we want to make sure that there is enough room for the hoodie, but we are going to fill it a good amount of ways. This is a 2.5 gallon bucket. So this can hold, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 hoodies. Just kind of depends. I think that's good right there. So now we're going to set that aside. Now usually rinse in the same way that I dyed. So if I dyed one side first, I'm going to rinse that side first. So I'm going to rinse with cold water. And we're going to rinse this until it becomes mostly clear. That could take a while. It could be quick. Just depends on how much dye you used, how much polyester is mixed into your material. The more polyester that's in here, the more that's going to rinse out, because that won't bond to the polyester. So all of that dye will come out, but everything that's bonded to the cotton will stay. But if there is a lot of dye, it may take a while to rinse as well. So you can see all this color underneath here and stuff. There's still a lot. So you want to be careful with rinsing, not to splash anywhere. Make sure you got a nice clean area. Most sinks nowadays you can rinse out in without worry of them staining. Some of the older sinks and stuff, they may stain. The newer plastic stuff, a lot of it, the only staining you may get is if you happen to have some soap that has dried somewhere on there. Sometimes that soap will stain, and so it just lets you know that you need to clean your sink out, or your tub if you want to rinse out in a tub. I do rinse out in a tub as well most of the time, but for the sake of this video purpose, it is easier to record here in the sink. So once you got it rinsed pretty decent, you can still see color coming out. But we're going to flip this over now and start to rinse from this side. And we can even give it a bit of a squeeze as it's rinsing. Try to help some of that dye out. But you're going to want to wait to squeeze till after you've rinsed a bit, like now. So if you squeeze too soon and there's too much dye in there, you could potentially get dye bleeding into an area where you don't want it to bleed. So do be careful with that squeezing. We are good here. I can tell from the intensity of the color that's coming out that a lot of the dye has come out, but there's still a lot of dye in here. I'm going to squeeze from this side. And honestly, I should have squeezed from this side first, not the other. With the black being on the bottom, you know, if any dye bleeds into the black area, that's fine, because the black is going to cover it up. You will never notice. But like say some of this purple was to bleed over here into the yellow, that could create some brown that you may not want. So you'll want to be careful with that. Now, like right now, this is a polyester side. And so our piece is going to be even more vibrant when we turn this inside out. I don't know if you can tell on the camera right there, the difference between just from right here and right here. This is 100% cotton. This is the polyester inside. And so this is much more vibrant just right here than it is right here. And I can tell here and here and here and here. Okay, so I think we're at a point where we can open this up now. We don't have to have it all rinsed out before opening, but you do want a lot of it rinsed out. That way you have less chance of dye splashing anywhere when you do open it right here, and less chance of bleeding if something touches an area that you don't want it to touch before you get the dye out of it. Okay. So now you can see our spiral here. And if you can see how there's like a white haze over this, but not over the hoodie. So that inside is the high polyester count. And then on the other side is the 100% cotton face. So once this goes in the wash, I'm not going to turn it inside out until after it goes in the wash. So it will have a slightly faded look on this side, and then your super ultra vibrant color on the outside, on the visible side. So we're going to continue to rinse a little bit with cold water here. And once we get most of the thick dye out, most of the dye out, then we're going to switch to hot water. And the hot water is going to get even more dye out. The color will sit in the fabric, and the heat allows it to release more of that unbonded dye. But you don't want to rinse with hot water first, because it could create the potential for bleeding. If there happens to be any active soda ash still and some active dye, and that hot water happens to mix with that active soda ash and the dye, it will stain in that spot right away, depending on how hot your water is. That's how hot water irrigation is done. It is just by putting powdered dye, powdered soda ash, and then spraying it with hot water, and it will set the dye instantly. So by rinsing with cold water first, it allows you to rinse out as much of the soda ash as possible. Your goal is to get the soda ash out, and then if there happens to be any left, and then you start to go to the hot water to make sure you get the rest of the dye out. And we're not going to be able to rinse all of it out. We'll be able to rinse most of it out. And then our soak after this will get even more out. And then the washing machine will get most of the rest out. So it can take a very, very long time to get all the dye out. The way to truly get it all out is to boil it in hot water. But some of that dye won't come out without those boiling temperatures. So there's not really a reason to boil it to get the dye out, because the dye is not going to bleed, because nobody's going to be in any kind of temperatures that exceed 200 degrees for it to come out anyway. So it's pretty much bonded in there. But we do want to get most of the hot stuff out. So the water that comes out of the faucet can be up to about 120 degrees in some houses. It could be hotter, just depends on what your setting is at your water heater. And that's, for the most part, that's sufficient enough to get what the color out that you need, all the dye out that you need. You see how this is still, the pinks and the reds a lot of times take a very long time to come out. You can see I'm just still getting quite a bit of that deeper pink right there coming out. So when most of the color looks like this out here, that's what we're looking for. But when it's still pretty vibrant, that means you want to keep on rinsing. And with hoodies, you know, this is a lot of material. We used a lot of dye. So hoodies are just going to take longer. Everything about hoodies takes longer. It's more material, it's more dye, it's more time, it's more effort. Everything about it is just more. But you end up getting a fantastic piece of clothing once you're finished. So just take the time, do what you need to do to get it done right, and get this rinsed out. So always check your collars. Give a little extra on each collar. And as you can see right here, I accidentally got the sleeve had touched into the orange right here, like this, or into that yellow, and it's started to stain. So we want to make sure stuff like that does not remain in there. Yeah, yellow is always your first color to get stained and dirty, or dingy, I should say. Wouldn't be dirty if it's dye, because it's permanent and it's not dirt. But I think you got what I meant. Okay, so now we're going to squeeze this out again. I'm going to wring it a little bit, but not too much. You don't want to twist too much because you can tear some of the seams if you do. So be gentle, but try to get that liquid out. And then we're going to do one more rinse. And see that white haze. Actually, you can definitely see the difference here. So this is what it's going to look like when we turn it inside out. This is what the inside looks like. These are the same color. Okay, so one more hot rinse. Make sure we get whatever was left behind. You still see some color coming out. There'll always be some color coming out during the rinse. It is not possible to get all of it, but get most of it. You don't want to halfway do this and then wear it and then get caught in the rain and dye bleeds all over you and everything you touch, because that can definitely happen after the first wash if it is not rinsed out completely. So you do want to make sure that nothing like that happens. Okay. So I think our color looks much better. That's coming off. I like to move it so I can check underneath. All right, so I think that is good. You want to squeeze out as much dye as possible. That's hot right now. Then we're going to take our bucket. You're going to submerge this into the hot soapy water completely and let that sit for at least 20 minutes. So after this is sat for about 20 minutes, we're going to dump all this out, see how much dye came out while it sat. So now we're going to rinse out all of that soap. Dish soap can't go into your washing machine. It suds up too much. It's not good. You can ruin your machine. So you need to do this step to make sure you got most of this out. A little bit is fine. But like if you're, so I'm going to have a few shirts in this wash, and putting multiple shirts with dish soap in the washing machine is not good for the machine at all. So if you're just doing one, you can probably get away with it, but I would recommend rinsing out all of this first. So you're going to get some more dye rinsed out as well. And then you want to get out all of these suds. So we're just going to go over the whole shirt. This isn't going to take nearly as long. This only takes about a minute or two. And there's going to be a little soap left in there, which is good. It's fine. So the soap allows the dye to, well, what it'll do is it'll release a little bit more, but then as it sits in the water while the soap works its way into the fabric, it makes it so that the dye can't make its way back in as it gets rinsed out. So that's why we use the dish soap. It's going to get out more dye than if you were to just put this in the washing machine. Laundry detergent doesn't get out this soap very well. There is specialized detergents that are meant for this that work just as well, but they cost a lot more, and I would rather just spend an extra few minutes in doing this. So now we got all that rinsed. So we're going to give this a squeeze. Get the rest of that liquid out. See, there's still a little bit of bubbles coming out, but it's all right. And most of that color is gone. There's a little bit, but it's just a tiny bit of color. We are fine with that. We'll put this back in the bucket and we'll take that to the washing machine. And to wash, we're just going to use regular detergent. Put your machine on. We're going to use the normal cycle. Put an extra rinse and let it run. After your shirt is washed, you can dry it in this machine if you want, or you can air dry it. Whatever the tag says on your hoodie, just follow what the tag says, or however you treat your laundry, just wash it that way. It will be just fine. Some of the hoodies do shrink if you dry them on high heat, so be very wary of that, and get a larger size if you're going to be drying it on a high heat, just in case it shrinks. So we're going to go over this hoodie now and explain a little bit over what we did. So we did the spiral with this, and here was our starting point. And so you can see how the color spirals out this way. And so we did an 8 color spiral. So we'll start in a spot. We'll start right here. So we've got purple, there's some blue, I believe there's turquoise between the blue and green, and then yellow, orange, there's some red, fuchsia, purple, blue, and then we work our way back out again. And so by tucking the sleeves in the way that we did, you can see how the pattern continues to go off and around. Same with over here, how the blue would be over the edge and then makes it all the way to the sleeve over here. And then by flipping it over and dyeing the other side black, that's how we get the stripes that come out through the center like this. And then our hood, as you can see, our hood's got inside and out. And then we'll flip this over so you can see the back side as well. As you can see, we have the same pattern on the front and back. So by making sure your shirt is, or your hoodie is flat at the beginning, that's how you end up getting the same pattern on the back side as you do the front side. Please be sure to click that like and subscribe for more videos. My name is Nate. Thank you for watching.